the alarm bells rang across New Hope Colony for the third day in a row. Commander Jake Miller stood in what remained of the command center, staring at the screens that showed 12 enemy warships circling above like vultures waiting for prey to die. His face was covered in dust and dried blood from a wound on his forehead that Dr. Amy Rodriguez had stitched up hours ago. "How much longer can the shields hold?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. Ben Carter, the mining supervisor who now served as their chief engineer, shook his head slowly. "Maybe 6 hours. Maybe less. We're running on backup power, and that's almost gone too." Jake looked around the room at the tired faces of his team. Lisa Morgan sat at the communications station, her hands shaking as she tried to boost their signal one more time. They had been fighting the Krell Dominion for 3 days now, and everyone knew they could not win. The question was no longer if they would fall, but when. The colony had been peaceful before the Krell arrived. 3,000 humans lived here, working the mines and building a new life on this distant world. They had welcomed 1,200 Varan refugees a year ago, aliens whose own worlds had been destroyed by these same Krell invaders. The Varan people were tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large eyes. They had nowhere else to go, and the humans of New Hope had opened their doors without question. Now both species would die together. "Commander, I'm getting another transmission from the Krell flagship," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Put it through," Jake replied. The face of the Krell commander appeared on the main screen. His species looked like a cross between a reptile and an insect, with hard, plated skin and multiple eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. When he spoke, the translator made his words sound almost pleasant, which made them more terrifying. "Human commander, this is your final opportunity to surrender. You have fought well for primitives, but you must see that resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and I promise most of your people will live as workers in the Dominion. Continue to fight, and we will kill every single one of you." Jake felt everyone in the room looking at him. He thought about the children hiding in the deep tunnels below. He thought about the Varan families who had trusted humanity to keep them safe. He thought about what life as a slave in the Krell Dominion would mean. "I have an answer for you," Jake said calmly. "Go to hell." He cut the transmission before the Krell commander could respond. The room was silent for a moment. Then, Ben Carter laughed. It was a tired, desperate laugh, but it was genuine. "Well, that's it then," Ben said. "We go down fighting." "We go down fighting," Jake agreed. Amy Rodriguez entered the command center, her medical uniform stained with blood from the hundreds of wounded she had been treating. She looked exhausted, but determined. "The hospitals in the lower levels are full," she reported. "We've got people in every tunnel, every storage room, every space we can find. If the Krell break through the shields and start bombing again, the cave-ins will kill more people than the explosions." "How many have we lost?" Jake asked quietly. 243 dead, over 800 wounded." Amy's voice cracked slightly. "Jake, we need to evacuate deeper into the tunnel system. The children especially. Do it," Jake ordered. "Ben, help coordinate the movement. Get everyone as deep as possible." As Ben and Amy left to organize the evacuation, Jake walked over to where Lisa was working. She was crying silently, her fingers still typing commands into her console. "Lisa, you should go with them," Jake said gently. "No," she said firmly, wiping her eyes. "I'm going to keep trying to boost this signal. Someone has to hear us. Someone has to know what happened here." Jake knew she was talking about the distress beacon they had sent toward Earth 3 days ago, right before the Krell destroyed their communications array. Earth was 7 months away, at maximum speed. Even if the beacon reached them, even if Earth sent help immediately, it would be 7 more months before anyone arrived. They would all be dead or enslaved long before then. But he did not say this to Lisa. Instead, he squeezed her shoulder and said, "Keep trying. You never know." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Families moved through the tunnels. carrying what little they could. The Varan people helped the humans, their longer arms perfect for carrying supplies. Elder Tixali, the leader of the Varan refugees, found Jake in one of the lower tunnels. "Commander Miller," the old Varan said in his careful English, "my people wish to thank yours. We expected you to surrender when the Krell came. No other species in the galaxy would fight for refugees the way you have fought for us. We don't abandon our own," Jake said simply. Tix Ali's large eyes blinked slowly, a gesture of deep respect in Varan culture. "The galaxy does not understand humans. They think you are weak because you are new to space travel. They think you are foolish because you help others without expecting payment. But I see the truth. Humans are the most dangerous species of all, because you do not know when to quit." A massive explosion shook the tunnel, sending dust raining down from the ceiling. The shields had finally failed. Jake grabbed his radio. "All units, the shields are down. Krell landing forces will be here within the hour. Everyone to the deepest levels. Prepare for tunnel combat." He looked at Tixali. "Take your people and go. I'm staying here with the defense teams." "No," the elder said firmly. "My warriors will fight beside yours. We die as we lived. Together." Jake wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in the old alien's eyes. He nodded and turned to his radio again. "All combat teams, this is Miller. They're coming down. Make every shot count. Make them pay for every meter of tunnel. Show these bastards what happens when they mess with New Hope." As he moved toward the upper levels with his rifle, Jake thought about Earth. He wondered if anyone there would ever know what happened here. He wondered if the distress beacon would ever reach home. He hoped that someday, somehow, humanity would make the Krell pay for what they had done. Above them, the sound of Krell landing craft grew louder. Jake checked his weapon one last time and waited in the darkness of the tunnel. Around him, humans and Varan stood side by side, ready to fight to the last breath. The first Krell soldiers appeared at the tunnel entrance, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Jake aimed carefully and whispered to himself, "For New Hope." Then the tunnel erupted with gunfire, and the real battle began. Elder Tixali remembered the first time he had seen a human. It was 1 year ago, when his refugee ships had arrived at New Hope Colony carrying the last survivors of his people. The Varan had lost everything to the Krell Dominion. 4 colony worlds destroyed, millions dead, only 20,000 survivors scattered across 3 damaged ships, running on failing engines and nearly empty fuel tanks. They had tried to find sanctuary on 7 different worlds. 7 times they had been turned away. The Talvex Federation said they could not risk Krell anger. The Morphean Collective said their worlds were too full. The Zendar Unity said accepting Varan refugees would violate their neutrality agreements. Every advanced civilization in the sector had closed their doors and told the Varan to keep moving. Then, they had detected the human colony on the edge of explored space. A small settlement, barely 10 years old, with primitive defenses and no major military force. The Varan Council had debated whether it was even worth asking. What could such a young species offer? But they were desperate and running out of options. Tix Ali had been chosen to make first contact. He had prepared a careful speech explaining their situation, offering to work in exchange for temporary shelter, promising they would leave as soon as possible. He had expected the humans to refuse like all the others. Instead, Commander Jake Miller had listened to his story, then said 5 words that Tixali would never forget. "You can stay as long as you need. No negotiation, no demands, no fear of Krell retaliation." The humans had simply opened their colony to 1,200 alien refugees without question. Within a week, Varan families were living in newly built housing. Within a month, Varan workers were contributing to the mines and farms. Within 3 months, Varan children were playing with human children, learning each other's languages and games. The other species in the galaxy had called it foolish. They said humans did not understand how the universe worked. They said humanity would learn a hard lesson when the Krell eventually found the Varan refugees. Now, 3 days into the Krell attack, Tixali understood that the other species were wrong about humans. They were not foolish. They were something far more dangerous. They were stubborn. The tunnel shook again as another explosion echoed from above. Tixali sat in one of the deep caverns, surrounded by Varan and human families. The humans had given the safest positions to the Varan children, placing their own youngsters in slightly more exposed areas. Even now, even when death was certain, they put others first. Young Velmora approached him. She was one of the Varan warriors, trained in combat from childhood like all her caste. She had been teaching hand-to-hand fighting techniques to the human militia over the past few months. Elder. The humans refused to surrender, Velmora said. I do not understand. They could negotiate for better terms. They could save lives by submitting to Krell rule. Why do they choose death? Tixali considered his answer carefully. Our people have studied hundreds of species across the galaxy. We have learned that most intelligent life follows similar patterns. They calculate risks versus rewards. They choose survival over principle. They adapt to stronger forces. This is considered logical behavior. But not humans? Velmora asked. Humans are different, Tixali said. I have spent a year studying them. I have read their history files. Their species evolved on a difficult world, competing with large predators and harsh environments. For thousands of years, they fought wars against each other. Terrible wars that killed millions. They developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. Velmora looked confused. Then they should understand the wisdom of surrender. Why fight when defeat is certain? Because somewhere in their evolution, humans developed something unusual, Tixali explained. They call it stubbornness. We might call it a refusal to accept reality. When faced with impossible odds, instead of submitting, humans become angry. Instead of calculating survival, they calculate revenge. Commander Miller knows he cannot win this fight. But he fights anyway, because the alternative is unacceptable to him. Another explosion, closer this time. Parents held their children tighter. Tixali saw a human mother named Amy Rodriguez moving through the cavern, checking on the wounded. She had been working for 3 days straight without sleep, refusing to rest while people needed her help. I spoke with some of the human fighters, Velmora continued. They told me stories about their history, about times when small groups of humans defeated much larger forces, about battles where humans refused to retreat even when surrounded, about wars where they fought for years against superior enemies. They seem proud of these stories. Too. They are proud, Tixali agreed. Because to humans, how you lose matters as much as whether you lose. They would rather die fighting than live in shame. It is inefficient. It is costly. It defies all strategic logic. He paused. And it is the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed. A human soldier named Ben Carter came running into the cavern. His uniform was torn and dirty, but he was smiling somehow. Elder Tixali, we need your warriors at Tunnel Junction 7. The Krell are pushing hard there, and we could use some help. Of course, Tixali said. He turned to Velmora. Gather our fighters. Elder, we do not have to fight. Velmora said quietly. The Krell did not come for us. They came for the colony. We could surrender separately, and might be spared. Tixali placed a hand on her shoulder. You are young, so you do not yet fully understand. The humans taught us something this past year. They taught us that family is not just about blood or species. It is about who stands beside you when darkness comes. Commander Miller could have turned us away, like all the others. Instead, he called us family. Now we prove. We understand what that word means. Velmora's eyes widened. Then she nodded firmly. I will gather the warriors. As the Varan fighters prepared to join the human defenders, Tixali made his way through the cavern to where Jake Miller was standing, studying a map of the tunnel system. The human commander looked exhausted but determined. "Commander, my warriors are ready to fight at Tunnel Junction 7, Tixali said. Jake looked up, and Tixali saw something strange in his eyes. It was not fear or despair. It was anger. A cold, controlled anger that burned like a sun. "You don't have to do this," Jake said. "You could try to negotiate with the Krell. Tell them you were forced to stay here. They might let your people live." "No," Tixali said firmly. "We fight together. We die together if necessary. This is what family does." Jake was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "The galaxy doesn't understand humans very well. But I think you do, Elder." "I do," Tixali agreed. "I understand that you are the most dangerous species in known space, not because of your weapons or your strength, but because you do not know how to quit. The Krell think they have already won. They calculate that we must surrender soon. They do not understand that humans invented a word for fighting without hope of victory. You call it defiance." The radio crackled with urgent voices. The Krell were breaking through at multiple points. Jake grabbed his rifle and prepared to move out. "One last thing, Commander," Tixali said. "That distress beacon we sent to Earth. It will never arrive in time to save us." "I know," Jake said quietly. "But if Earth does receive it, what do you think they will do?" Jake thought about that for a moment. "They'll come. Even if we're already gone. They'll come. And they'll make the Krell wish they had never heard of humanity." Tixali believed him. In the year he had spent with humans, he had learned one fundamental truth about them. They remembered. They honored their dead, and they never, ever forgave those who hurt their family. As he followed Jake Miller toward the sound of gunfire, Tixali felt something he had not felt since his homeworld fell. He felt peace. Not because he thought they would survive, but because he was finally among people who understood that some things were worth dying for. The battle raged on in the tunnels of New Hope Colony, and the Varan people fought beside their human friends, waiting for an end they all knew was coming. 7 months had passed since the distress beacon left New Hope Colony. 7 months of silence. 7 months of Krell occupation. Jake Miller crouched in the darkness of Tunnel 42, his rifle aimed at the entrance where Krell patrol units would pass in approximately 3 minutes. His team of 12 fighters waited with him, hidden in the shadows. They had been running guerrilla operations for months now, striking the Krell garrison and disappearing back into the deep tunnels. Of the 3,000 humans and 1,200 Varan who had lived at New Hope, only 400 fighters remained free. The rest were dead or captured, processed into the Krell slave system. Jake tried not to think about what had happened to them. He tried not to think about Amy Rodriguez, who had been captured while treating wounded civilians. He tried not to think about Ben Carter, who had died holding a tunnel collapse long enough for 50 people to escape. He only thought about the next target. The next Krell patrol. The next small victory. In a war they had already lost. The Krell soldiers appeared right on schedule. 6 of them, moving through the tunnel with their energy weapons ready. Jake waited until they were perfectly positioned, then gave the signal. 12 rifles opened fire at once. The Krell went down before they could return fire. Jake's team moved quickly, taking the aliens' weapons and ammunition, then retreating deeper into the tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. "That's the 3rd patrol this week," whispered Lisa Morgan, who had somehow survived and become one of Jake's best fighters. "They're getting angry." "Good," Jake said coldly. "I want them angry. I want them to remember New Hope every time they close their eyes." They made it back to the main resistance camp, a large cavern far below the surface where Elder Tixali and the remaining Varan sheltered with the few human civilians still free. Children played quietly in the corners while adults rationed the last of their food supplies. Everyone was thin now. Everyone was tired. But no one had surrendered. Tixali approached Jake as he cleaned his rifle. "Commander, We cannot continue like this much longer. Our supplies are nearly gone. The Krell are sealing more tunnels every day. Soon we will have nowhere left to hide. I know, Jake said. He had known for weeks that the end was coming. They had fought well, killed hundreds of Krell soldiers, made the occupation costly, but eventually the Krell would find them all. 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we ration carefully. Jake nodded slowly. 2 weeks until the last resistance on New Hope ended. 2 weeks until humanity's first major colony fell completely. He wondered if Earth even knew what had happened here. He wondered if anyone would remember. Far above them, in orbit around New Hope, Krell Commander Zurath stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the planet with satisfaction. The conquest had taken longer than expected and cost more soldiers than planned. But it was nearly complete. The human resistance was trapped in the deep tunnels, with nowhere to go. Soon he would flood those tunnels with poison gas and end this annoying insurgency. His sensor officer suddenly spoke up, sounding confused. "Commander, I am detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system." "What kind of signatures?" Zurath asked, not particularly concerned. "Unknown, Commander. Very large. Multiple contacts. They just appeared from nowhere." Zurath moved to the sensor station, his multiple eyes narrowing. The screen showed 17 distinct contacts, each one massive, moving toward New Hope at high speed. His first thought was that the Varen had somehow summoned reinforcements. But these energy signatures did not match any known Varen ship design. "Identify those vessels," he ordered. "Attempting identification now, Commander. The signatures are unlike anything in our database." "Wait. I am receiving a transmission. Put it through." A human face appeared on the main screen. A human in a military uniform, sitting in what looked like the bridge of a warship. The human appeared calm, almost casual, but his eyes were hard as steel. "Krell vessels in orbit around New Hope Colony. This is Captain Ryan Hayes of the Earth Defense Force carrier Thunderbird. You are ordered to power down your weapons immediately and prepare to be boarded. You have 5 minutes to comply." The Krell bridge was silent for a moment. Then, Zurath began to laugh. His translator made it sound like grinding metal. "Captain Hayes, your courage is admirable but foolish. We have 12 warships and have already conquered this world. You will leave this system immediately or be destroyed." The human captain did not change expression. "I don't think you understand the situation. Let me make it clear. You attacked a human colony. You killed human citizens. You took human prisoners. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to end you. You have 4 minutes." The transmission cut off. Zurath felt a moment of uncertainty. Something about the human's tone suggested he was not bluffing. But 12 Krell warships against 17 ships from a primitive species that had barely entered space? The outcome was obvious. "All ships, battle formation," Zurath ordered. "Prepare to engage the human fleet." Down in the tunnels, Lisa Morgan was checking the communications equipment they had managed to save when it suddenly crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking English, with an accent she recognized immediately as American. "New Hope Colony, this is the Earth Defense Force. If anyone can hear this transmission, please respond. We are here. Help has arrived." Lisa stared at the radio in disbelief. Then she started crying and laughing at the same time. "Jake! Jake! Get over here!" Jake ran over, his rifle ready, thinking they were under attack. "What is it?" "Listen," Lisa said, turning up the volume. "Repeat. This is the EDF calling New Hope Colony. We received your distress beacon. The cavalry is here. Please respond if anyone is receiving this transmission." Jake grabbed the radio with shaking hands. His voice cracked when he spoke. "EDF. This is Commander Jake Miller of New Hope Colony. We are still here. We are still fighting." There was a pause, then the voice came back, and Jake could hear the emotion in it. "Commander Miller, this is Captain Ryan Hayes. We have 17 warships in system, including the carrier Thunderbird. We are engaging the Krell fleet now. Hold your position. We're coming to get you. Jake sat down hard, unable to believe what he was hearing. Around him, people started to cry, to hug each other, to whisper prayers of thanks. Elder Tix Ali approached, with tears running down his face. How is this possible? The Varan asked. The distress beacon should have taken 7 months to reach Earth. Another 7 months for ships to return. It has only been 7 months total. Rating Rees. Jake had no answer. He just held the radio and listened to the sound of weapons fire coming through the channel. The sound of Earth's military engaging the enemy. In orbit, the Krell fleet moved to intercept the human ships. Zurath expected a standard engagement. He expected the humans to spread out, to try to use their numbers advantage, to fight cautiously like all sensible species did. Instead, the human fleet charged straight at them at incredible speed. The lead vessel, the carrier Thunderbird, was massive, larger than anything the Krell had ever built. As it approached, its flight deck opened, and hundreds of small craft poured out like angry insects. Fighter craft launching, his sensor officer screamed. 240 fighters incoming. Zurath had never seen so many fighters launched from a single vessel. The Krell fleet tried to target them, but the human fighters moved with impossible speed and agility, weaving through defensive fire like dancers. They closed to weapons range in seconds. The first Krell cruiser exploded before Zurath even understood what had hit it. The second followed moments later. The human fighters were armed with weapons that punched through Krell shields as if they were not there. The human capital ships fired massive railguns that sent projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. All ships, focus fire on the carrier, Zurath ordered desperately. The Krell fleet concentrated their weapons on the Thunderbird, pouring energy beams and missiles at it. The human ship's shields flared bright blue but held steady. Then the Thunderbird returned fire. Thanks for watching. And the Mother Look signed. A single shot from its main gun struck Zurath's flagship, and he felt the entire vessel shake. Shields at 40%, his officer reported. One shot took us to 40%. Another Krell ship exploded. Then another. The human fleet was tearing through them like a hot knife through soft material. Lieutenant Chris Bennett, leading a squadron of human fighters, coordinated perfectly with his pilots. Their movements almost telepathic in precision. This is impossible, Zurath whispered. How can humans have this technology? His communication officer spoke up, his voice shaking. Commander, I am receiving multiple distress calls from our garrison on the surface. They report human soldiers deploying from orbital drop pods, hundreds of them. They say the humans are attacking with extreme aggression. Zurath watched another of his ships die on the screen. In 15 minutes of combat, he had lost half his fleet. The humans had lost nothing. Not a single ship damaged enough to retreat. He opened a channel to Captain Hayes. I surrender. Please, I surrender. The human captain appeared on screen again, and his expression had not changed at all. Still calm. Still cold. No. Captain Hayes said simply, you don't get to surrender. New Hope Colony asked for mercy. You gave them death. Now you receive the same courtesy. The transmission ended. Zurath understood then that he was going to die. The humans were not here to negotiate or take prisoners. They were here for revenge. Down in the tunnels, Jake Miller heard the explosions echoing from the surface. He heard the sound of Krell garrison forces screaming in panic over their own communication channels. He heard the voice of an American woman identifying herself as Major Kate Sullivan, calling for any New Hope defenders to mark their positions. Jake grabbed his radio. Major Sullivan, this is Commander Miller. We are in the deep tunnels. Coordinates uploading now. We have approximately 400 fighters and civilians with us. Many are wounded. Roger that, Commander, Major Sullivan responded. Hold tight. Marines are coming down to link up with you. We'll have you out of there within the hour. And, Commander, good job keeping them busy. Time to let us finish this. Jake looked around at his people. At the Varan, who had fought beside them. At Lisa Morgan, who was hugging everyone she could reach. At the children, who were finally smiling for the first time in months. They came, he said, his voice full of wonder. Earth came for us. Elder Tix Ali placed a hand on his shoulder. I told you humans were different. You do not abandon family. Not ever. Above them, the last Krell ships burned in the darkness of space, and Earth's warriors descended from the heavens like angels of fury. Coming to take their people home, Major Kate Sullivan hit the ground running. Her drop pod had punched through the atmosphere of New Hope at incredible speed, then deployed parachutes at the last possible second to slow her landing. Around her, 200 more pods slammed into the surface near the Krell garrison. Before the dust had even settled, Kate was moving. Alpha Company, form up on me. Bravo, take the eastern barracks. Charlie, secure the command center, she shouted into her radio. Her Marines responded instantly, spreading out in perfect formation. They had trained for months specifically for this mission. Ever since the distress beacon from New Hope had reached Earth, the Krell garrison troops were panicking. They had watched their fleet get destroyed in orbit. They had heard the desperate final transmissions from Commander Zur-Ath before his ship exploded. Now they were facing human soldiers who fought with a precision and fury they had never encountered before. Kate raised her rifle and fired a 3-round burst at a Krell soldier trying to man a defensive position. Her heads-up display showed enemy positions highlighted in red, friendly forces in blue. Intelligence had given them complete maps of the garrison layout, stolen from Krell data networks by Earth's cyber warfare units. Contact, 12 o'clock, 20 meters, one of her Marines called out. Suppressing fire, Kate ordered. A squad opened up with their weapons, pinning down a group of Krell soldiers. Another squad flanked them from the side, moving with the kind of coordinated tactics that took years to master. The Krell tried to respond but were caught in crossfire. Within seconds, that position was neutralized. The Krell had numbers and defensive positions, but the human Marines had something more important. They had training, technology, and most importantly, they had motivation. Every single Marine knew what the Krell had done to New Hope Colony. They had seen the reports, the images, the lists of casualties. This was not just a military operation. This was personal. Kate led her company toward the main garrison building where intelligence indicated the Krell were holding human prisoners. As they moved through the compound, she saw the evidence of 7 months of occupation, destroyed buildings, mass graves, equipment stolen from the colony and repurposed for Krell use. It made her blood boil. A Krell officer emerged from a building, trying to organize a counterattack. Kate shot him before he could finish shouting orders. She felt no guilt. These aliens had attacked a defenseless colony, killed civilians, taken prisoners. As far as she was concerned, they had forfeited any right to mercy. Major, we've breached the prison facility, one of her lieutenants reported. We're finding the prisoners now. We're finding the prisoners now. We're finding the prisoners. 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 We're finding the prisoners now. We're finding the prisoners. We're finding the prisoners. Status? Kate asked while moving forward. They're in bad shape, ma'am. Looks like they've been used as forced labor. Many injuries? Malnutrition. But they're alive. Kate reached the prison building and went inside. The sight made her want to kill every Krell in the garrison twice. Human and Varan prisoners were crammed into cells meant for half their number. They were thin, dirty, showing signs of beatings and worse. But when they saw the human Marines, their faces filled with hope and tears. We're getting you out, Kate told them. Medical teams are on the way. You're safe now. One of the prisoners, a woman Kate recognized from the files as Dr. Amy Rodriguez, grabbed her arm. Commander Miller, Jake Miller, he's still alive, in the tunnels with the resistance. You have to help them. We know, Doctor. Kate said gently. "We're in contact with Commander Miller. Another team is moving to link up with him right now. Everyone is going home." Dr. Rodriguez started crying and nodded, unable to speak. Kate left her with the medical teams and continued the assault. The Krell were falling back, trying to form a defensive line at the spaceport where their transport ships were located. They were trying to evacuate. "All units, push to the spaceport," Kate ordered. "No Krell leaves this planet alive." Her Marines moved forward with relentless efficiency. Every Krell position was identified, flanked, and destroyed. The aliens were good fighters individually, but they were not prepared for human military doctrine. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. They had developed tactics and strategies through countless conflicts. The Krell had mostly fought less advanced species who surrendered quickly. At the spaceport, the Krell made their last stand. They had approximately 300 soldiers and were trying to load onto transport ships. Kate's forces surrounded the position and called for their surrender. The Krell refused and opened fire. The battle was brief and brutal. Human artillery, brought down from the ships in orbit, pounded the Krell positions. Human snipers picked off anyone who tried to man the defensive weapons. Human assault teams breached the perimeter from 3 directions simultaneously. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The Krell commander at the garrison, a soldier named Krevax, was found hiding in a transport ship. Kate's Marines pulled him out and brought him before her. He looked at her with his multiple eyes, seeking some kind of mercy. "You are soldiers," he said through his translator. "You understand the rules of war. I am your prisoner. I claim protection under galactic military conventions." Kate looked at him coldly. "You attacked a civilian colony. You killed non-combatants. You tortured prisoners. You don't get to hide behind rules you didn't follow yourself. What will you do with me?" Krevax asked. And Kate heard fear in his voice. For the first time. "That's not my decision," Kate said. "Captain Hayes will decide your fate. But if it were up to me, I'd leave you here to explain to your superiors how you lost an entire garrison to a species you thought was primitive." She had him taken to a holding cell and turned her attention to securing the rest of the colony. Medical ships were landing, bringing doctors and supplies. Engineering teams were already working to restore power and communications. The EDF was not just here to fight. They were here to rebuild. Down in the tunnels, Jake Miller heard different footsteps approaching. Not the heavy tread of Krell soldiers, but the quick, disciplined movement of human Marines. A team of 20 soldiers in EDF combat armor emerged from the tunnel. Their weapons ready, but their body language friendly. The lead Marine removed his helmet, revealing a young face with a bright smile. "Commander Miller? I'm Sergeant Danny Price. We're here to take you home, sir." Jake felt his knees go weak with relief. He had held these people together for 7 months through impossible circumstances. He had fought when there was no hope. He had watched friends die. And now, finally, it was over. "How many Marines did you bring?" Jake asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Just this squad to escort you, sir. Major Sullivan figured you and your people could handle getting yourselves out with a little help." Jake laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in months. "Tell Major Sullivan we appreciate the vote of confidence. Lisa, get everyone ready to move. We're going home." The resistance fighters and civilians emerged from the deep tunnels, blinking in the sunlight they had not seen for weeks. Elder Tixali walked beside Jake, looking up at the sky where Earth's warships orbited like protective guardians. "Your species amazes me," the old Varan said. "Not just because you came, but because you came so quickly. How did you travel 7 months' distance in such a short time?" Jake had been wondering the same thing. Sergeant Price overheard the question and answered. "New quantum drive technology, sir. Been in secret development for a couple years. When your distress beacon arrived, the President authorized its use for the rescue fleet. Cut the travel time from 7 months to 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Jake repeated in wonder. Earth built a rescue fleet and traveled across the sector in 3 weeks. Yes, sir, Price said proudly. We take care of our own. They reached the surface to find the colony transformed. Krell bodies were being removed. Human engineers were already repairing damaged structures. Medical tents were set up everywhere, treating both the freed prisoners and Jake's resistance fighters. Dr. Amy Rodriguez ran to Jake when she saw him and hugged him tightly. We made it, she said, crying. We actually made it. Yeah, Jake said, hugging her back. We did. Major Kate Sullivan found them a few minutes later. She saluted Jake formally, despite him being covered in dirt and wearing torn clothes. Commander Miller, Major Kate Sullivan, EDF Marines. Sir, Captain Hayes wants to speak with you. He's waiting at the command center. Jake followed her to what remained of the original command building, now occupied by Earth's military personnel. Captain Ryan Hayes stood looking at a tactical display, but turned when Jake entered. The captain was older than Jake expected, maybe 50, with gray hair and the weathered look of someone who had seen combat before. Commander Miller, Hayes said, extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you. You and your people put up one hell of a fight. Thank you for coming, Captain, Jake said, shaking his hand. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect anyone to arrive in time. Neither did the Krell, Hayes said with a grim smile. That's why we hit them so hard. We wanted to send a message. He gestured to the display, which showed the wreckage of the Krell fleet. Every ship destroyed. Every soldier on the surface neutralized. The Krell Dominion picked a fight with humanity. They're going to regret it. What happens now? Jake asked. Now, Hayes looked back at the display. Now, we make sure every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you attack a human colony. The Krell thought we were weak because we're new to space. They thought we were easy targets. They were wrong, and everyone is going to know it. Jake looked out the window at his colony. Scarred but standing. He looked at the Earth ships in orbit. He looked at the Marines, moving with purpose through the settlement, and he understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as diplomats or explorers, but as warriors who protected their own with overwhelming force. The Krell had learned a hard lesson. You don't mess with humanity's family. 3 days after the battle, New Hope Colony was beginning to look like a settlement again, instead of a war zone. Human engineering teams worked around the clock, rebuilding structures and restoring systems. The destroyed sections of the colony would take months to fully repair, but the essential infrastructure was already functional. Jake Miller stood in the rebuilt command center, watching the morning sun rise over the colony. He had slept in an actual bed for the first time in 7 months. He had taken a hot shower. He had eaten a real meal instead of tunnel rations. Simple things, but they felt like miracles. Captain Hayes entered the command center carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Jake and stood beside him at the window. How are your people doing? Hayes asked. Better, Jake said. Dr. Rodriguez says most of the physical injuries will heal. The psychological ones will take longer. But we'll get there. You did good, Commander. You kept these people alive against impossible odds. That takes something special. That's takes something special. Jake shook his head. I just did what needed to be done. Ben Carter was the hero, holding that tunnel collapse. Lisa Morgan kept trying to boost our signal, even when she knew no help would come in time. Elder Tix Ali and his people fought beside us when they could have tried to negotiate separately. Everyone here is a hero. Hayes nodded slowly. The President wants to give you a medal when you return to Earth. You, Dr. Rodriguez, and several others probably won't want to hear this, but you're going to be famous. The commander who held out until Earth could reach him. I don't want to be famous, Jake said quietly. I just want to make sure this never happens again to any human colony. That's actually why I'm here, Hayes said. We need to talk strategy. Mind if I bring in some others? Jake agreed, and Hayes called in Major Kate Sullivan, along with Elder Tix Ali and a Varan warrior named Velmora. Lisa Morgan also joined them, now serving as the colony's acting communications director since the position had become vacant. Hayes pulled up a star map on the main display. It showed dozens of systems, including New Hope and Earth, but also many other colonies and settlements. Here's the situation, Hayes began. The Krell Dominion controls approximately 40 systems. They've been expanding for the last 50 years, conquering less advanced species and enslaving the populations. Nobody has seriously challenged them, because most galactic civilizations consider it more efficient to just cede territory than fight costly wars. Cowards, Velmora said bluntly. Maybe, Hayes agreed. Or maybe just practical. Fighting the Krell requires resources and commitment. It's easier to avoid them, but that strategy has allowed them to grow unchecked. Now they've attacked a human colony, and that changes everything. What does Earth plan to do? Jake asked. That's being debated right now, Hayes said. Some in the government want to negotiate, establish boundaries, make peace. Others want to go on the offensive. Push the Krell back, make them pay for what they did here. And a few are suggesting something more ambitious. What's that? Lisa asked. Hayes looked at Elder Tixali before answering. The Varan people aren't the only ones the Krell have conquered. There are at least 12 other species under their control. Millions of beings living as slaves. If Earth establishes itself as a military power willing to challenge the Krell, those species might see us as potential liberators. Tix Ali spoke up, his voice thoughtful. You want to start a war of liberation. Not just defend your own territory, but actively fight to free others. Some people are suggesting that, yes, Hayes confirmed. It would be expensive. It would be dangerous. We would make enemies. But it would also make it clear to the galaxy that humanity stands against oppression wherever we find it. Kate Sullivan leaned forward. With all respect, Captain, my Marines didn't sign up to be the galaxy's police force. We came here to rescue our people. And we did. Why should we risk more lives for aliens we don't even know? It was a fair question, and everyone looked to Hayes for an answer. He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because it's who we are, he finally said. Earth has a long history of fighting against tyranny. Not perfectly, not always successfully, but consistently. When we see injustice, something in us demands we act. The Varan came to us as strangers, and New Hope took them in without question. That wasn't strategic. It wasn't logical. It was human. Jake found himself nodding. The Krell attacked us because they saw us as weak. They thought a young species like humanity would be easy prey. We need to make sure everyone in the galaxy understands they were wrong. Not just through this one victory, but through consistent action. But how do we do that without overextending ourselves? Lisa asked practically. Earth has maybe 100 warships. The Krell have thousands. Even with our technological advantage, we can't fight an empire that size directly. Hayes smiled slightly. That's where strategy comes in. We don't need to conquer the Krell. We just need to make conquering others too expensive for them to continue. Every time they attack a weak colony, we respond with overwhelming force. Every time they try to enslave a population, we show up and stop them. A defensive strategy, Tix Ali said, understanding. You turn Earth into the protector of weaker species. Force the Krell to fight you every time they want to expand. Exactly. And we've already started. Earth is establishing a permanent garrison here at New Hope. 3 warships, 2,000 Marines, complete defensive systems. This colony will never be vulnerable again. And we're offering the same protection to other species. Velmora looked skeptical. Other species will not trust this offer. They will think humans want something in return. That is how the galaxy works. End. All. Velmora, and then we prove them wrong, Hayes said. We protect them, and ask for nothing. We help rebuild their worlds and demand no payment. Eventually, they'll understand we mean what we say. Lisa pulled up something on her console. Captain, I've been monitoring galactic communications since our systems came back online. The news of what happened here is spreading fast. The Krell are calling it a minor setback. But other species are paying attention. There are discussions on dozens of worlds about what it means that Earth traveled so far, so fast, to rescue one colony. Hayes nodded. Good. Let them talk. Let them wonder. We're going to broadcast a message on all channels, making our position clear. What kind of message? Jake asked. A simple one. That humanity protects its own. That we extend protection to any species threatened by aggressors. That we will not tolerate slavery or conquest in our region of space. And that the Krell or anyone else who wants to test us will get the same response New Hope did. Kate Sullivan whistled softly. That's going to make us some enemies, sir. We already have enemies, Hayes pointed out. The Krell proved that, when they attacked here. At least this way. We also make some friends. Over the next 2 days, Earth's communication specialists worked with Lisa Morgan to prepare the broadcast. It would go out on every major frequency, in every common galactic language. The message was simple, but clear. On the third day, Captain Hayes stood in front of cameras in the New Hope Command Center. Behind him, visible through the window, were the 3 Earth warships that would form the permanent garrison. The broadcast began. My name is Captain Ryan Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. 3 weeks ago, we received a distress signal from New Hope Colony. The Krell Dominion had attacked this peaceful settlement, killed civilians, and attempted to enslave the survivors. Earth responded immediately with a military fleet and successfully liberated the colony. Hayes paused, letting that sink in for viewers across the galaxy. Some of you may wonder why Earth traveled so far and committed so many resources to save one small colony. The answer is simple. They were ours. They were human. And humanity does not abandon its own, ever. But our commitment goes beyond just humans. The Veran people sought refuge at New Hope when their worlds were destroyed. The humans of this colony welcomed them without hesitation. When the Krell attacked, humans and Veran fought side by side. That is what family does. Another pause. Hayes's expression grew harder. Today, I make a declaration on behalf of Earth and its government. We are establishing a permanent, defensive presence at New Hope. Any future attack on this colony will be considered an act of war against Earth itself. Furthermore, we extend an offer of protection to any species threatened by aggression. If you are being conquered, if you are being enslaved, if you need help defending your people, contact Earth. We will respond. To the Krell Dominion specifically, understand this. Your empire was built on the suffering of weaker species. You expanded because no one was willing to stop you. That ends now. Any future act of conquest will bring you into conflict with humanity. And as you learned at New Hope, that is a conflict you cannot win. Hayes leaned forward slightly, his eyes intense. To the rest of the galaxy, know this. Earth is young. We are new to space travel. We do not have ancient traditions or vast empires. But we have something more important. We have principles. We believe in freedom. We believe in protecting the innocent. We believe some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds seem impossible. New Hope Colony was supposed to fall. The Krell fleet was overwhelming. The garrison was too strong. But the humans here refused to surrender. They fought for 7 months against impossible odds, and they held on just long enough for help to arrive. That is what humans do. We endure. We fight. We survive. And we protect our own. The broadcast ended with a simple text message in multiple languages. Under Earth's protection, the reaction across the galaxy was immediate and varied. Some species praised Earth's courage. Others called it dangerous interventionism. The Krell government officially protested, calling the broadcast an act of aggression. But most importantly, within hours, Earth began receiving communications from other species asking if the offer was real. A colony of Prexian refugees asked if Earth would help defend them from raiders. A Hynari settlement, threatened by a resource company, sought protection. A Varan colony world not yet contacted by the Krell asked if Earth's protection extended to them. In the New Hope Command Center, Jake watched the communications flood in with Elder Tix Ali beside him. "Your species is about to become very busy," the Varan elder observed. "I know," Jake said. "But it's the right thing to do. We can't just defend ourselves and ignore everyone else. That's not who we are." A young Varan child, one of the refugees who had survived the occupation, approached them. She looked up at Jake with her large eyes. "Mr. Jake, is it true? Will Earth really protect my people?" "All Varan. Not just those here?" Jake knelt down to her level. "Yes. Earth protects its friends. And the Varan are definitely our friends." The child hugged him, and Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Earth had just committed to defending not just its own colonies, but any species that needed help. It was ambitious. It was dangerous. It would cost resources and probably lives. But as he looked around at the rebuilt colony, at the humans and Varan working together to repair what the Krell had destroyed, he knew it was right. Humanity had learned hard lessons in its history about the cost of standing by while evil flourished. Now that they had reached the stars, they were not going to repeat those mistakes. Elder Tix Ali placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "The other species of the galaxy do not yet understand humans. They think you are either foolish or hiding ulterior motives. But I understand. I have lived among you. I have watched you fight. I know the truth." "What truth is that?" Jake asked. "That humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of your weapons or technology, but because you actually believe in something. You believe some things are more important than survival. You believe in sacrifice. You believe in protecting the weak even when it costs you. The Krell thought you were prey. They were wrong. You are predators. But predators who hunt other predators." Captain Hayes rejoined them, looking satisfied. The broadcast went out across 47 systems. Response has been significant. Earth Command is already forming additional response fleets. The Krell won't take this lying down, Kate Sullivan warned. They'll see this as a challenge they have to answer. "Let them come," Hayes said calmly. "They attacked New Hope with 12 ships and 400 soldiers. They lost everything. If they want to try again, we'll be ready. And this time, we'll have permanent defenses in place." As the sun set over New Hope Colony, Jake stood outside the command center and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krell were planning their response. Somewhere out there, other species were watching to see if Earth's promise was real. Somewhere out there, enslaved populations were beginning to hope. Earth had descended from the heavens like avenging angels, proving that help could arrive even when all hope seemed lost. Now humanity would have to live up to the promise it had made. It would not be easy. It would not be cheap. But it would be right. And that was enough.